eating it up as if it were chicken salad when it's really been your fault all along.
Make chicken salad out of chicken shit. People is as people does, that's all there is to it. But a square peg in a round hole just never seems to fit. And you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Here I was, blaming AEW for feeding you chicken shit, knowing you mindless millennials would be eating it up as if it were chicken salad, when it's really been your fault all along.
Make chicken salad out of chicken shit. People is as people does, that's all there is to it. But a square peg in a round hole just never seems to fit. And you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Here I was, blaming AEW for feeding you chicken shit, knowing you mindless millennials would be eating it up as if it were chicken salad, when it's really been your fault all along.
Make chicken salad out of chicken shit. People is as people does, that's all there is to it. But a square peg in a round hole just never seems to fit. And you can't make chicken salad out of chicken shit.
Hello and welcome to Making Chicken Salad, the WrestleRadio Australia show where we talk about everything going on around the world of wrestling. My name is Lachlan Albert and I have not been paying enough attention to give nicknames, so I am joined by two of my favorite people in the world. First of all, the best manager ever, Todd Eastman. Todd, how you doing, mate?
COVID-free, brother.
Love to hear it, mate. Love to hear it. And I'm also joined by the brain behind WrestleBrainia, Jeff Setti. Jeff, how you doing, brother?
I'm really well, mate. How's yourself?
Yeah, doing good, especially doing good after getting to finally meet you in person over the weekend, a week and a half past. It was good to finally see you and see a WrestleBrainia show, which, before we kick off, I've got to talk about how much fun it is to see WrestleBrainia live. It was an absolute delight seeing the SLAM WrestleBrainia show in Canberra. So for anyone who has not seen WrestleBrainia, who has not had the chance, where is going to be the next opportunity to catch some Brainia?
Well, your next opportunity is in Perth on February 24 at 2:30 at a place called Linnet's Lounge. That is right there in the middle of Perth. It's a train ride away from the auditorium where they're going to be doing the WWE show. Tickets are already on sale, and believe it or not, they're already moving. People have just started snapping them up, which we're really thrilled about. We do have a limited capacity, so you probably want to get into that. They're on OzTix this time. Tickets are on OzTix. Please come along. As Lachlan will tell you, like Friday night was just a ball. Dane Simpson was our special guest, and he is, without a doubt, one of the funniest people. He was just so funny. James
Absolutely cracking.
WrestleBrainia is highly recommended. James, that is lovely of you. Thank you so much, mate.
And thank you, as always, to James Cray Official, who is joining us here live at twitch.tv/WrestleRadio Australia. If you want to be part of the conversation as we discuss what's going on in wrestling, join us here at twitch.tv/WrestleRadio Australia, just like James Cray, and you can be part of that chat as we go on. But enough with the formalities. We need to start getting into it because there has been not one, but two massive Australian shows that have gone on over the past couple of weeks, and we are going to talk about both of them. Jeff was, in fact, at both of them live, so that's very exciting. We have MCW Endgame and SLAM Pro Wrestling League, both of which were some big shows. In fact, SLAM Pro Wrestling, the number that they put out for their attendance was over 1,700 people in attendance. Both Jeff and I at that one, and a huge venue packed to the brim, as well as MCW ending off the year leading into one of their biggest shows ever, anniversary in February. It is just a great time to be a fan of Aussie wrestling. So I'll mention where you can get a hold of these shows right now, because otherwise I will forget to mention it. Slam Pro Wrestling League, you can find on YouTube immediately. Yeah, Timothy Wilkes saying was a great job by Slam. Their show was on YouTube live and is still up there. If you're interested in seeing what went down, go to YouTube, type in Slam Pro Wrestling League. You'll be able to find their show. Rage in the Cage was the name of that show. And you'll be able to enjoy that one for free. As well, if you're a member of Fight Plus, you can catch MCW Endgame for free, along with all the other MCW shows on Fight. That's how I watched it. In fact, under an hour ago, so I can confirm for you it's up there. And where we've had some issues with the production quality of MCW in the past, I think this is one of the best produced events that MCW has put up on Fight, other than some tiny things like Lindsay having his commentary mic on instead of his ring announcing mic on a couple of times to announce winners. I can barely pull a flaw from this one, and especially loving the two-man commentary desk. That is nothing against Lindsay, who wasn't on commentary for this event, but it just felt so smooth, so clean. Having two ring announcers as well was really exciting for this one. I thought that for a show that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, this was a matinee show. This happened in the afternoon, right?
Yeah, it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The audience were definitely skewing a little younger than normal, which, you know, will enter into my chicken shit later on. But it was a wonderful show. Really, really a lot of fun, and definitely a more family-oriented show than their normal Saturday night spot there at the Thornbury Theatre.
Absolutely. And that younger crowd were coming through loud and clear on that Fight Plus stream. Todd, did you have any overall thoughts about Endgame before we start breaking it down match by match?
Look, it's going to be a little bit different to yours, Lachlan, because you were talking about how good you thought the production was and how it was all. And, like, I'm not faulting the production at all, but I was thinking about it today, and, like, because I pretty much watched Slam and then MCW back to back, and it was like Slam felt like it was live and very, whereas MCW felt very produced, if that makes sense.
I know what
like
you're
there's
saying,
a filter, like there was a filter over it, sort of thing. There's not taking any that, and that would probably be my only criticism of the show at all. Is that because aside from that, like, the matches are great, the wrestlers are great, the storyline's great, everything else is great. It's just it's like a disconnect. I can't put my finger on what it is, and the only thing I can think of is that it might be that it's been like, it's not direct live, it's not like live edited, it's sort of like pre-produced and polished, and which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It was just different.
It's definitely gone through an editing process to come out with that end product. But let's get in and talk about the actual show, because sounds like I'm going to have a couple of disagreements with you here, Todd. There were a couple of things on this show that I did not love at all, actually. But one of those is, and I'm going to complain about this on both shows, I just don't like battle royals. I don't. I love a rumble. A battle royal tends to introduce too many people who leave too quickly, and a bunch of it is wasted time. I would much rather, and in this situation, I feel like we could have done almost the exact same battle royal with half the people, and I think it might have been more entertaining. You know, I think that there tends to be a lot of wasted energy going into these big multi-man matches when they're not rumbles. But anyway, I should actually get to what we're talking about. The MCW Inter-Commonwealth Championship #1 contendership was on the line in a battle royale, which was won by Nick Legstrong. This coming after Emin eliminated Jarvis in the final 3. Then Jarvis turned around and eliminated Nick Armstrong, but the referees were busy trying to get Jarvis out of the ringside area and didn't notice the elimination. Nick Armstrong putting on the mullet wig, becoming Nick Legstrong, re-entering the match, and eliminating Emin Osman to become #1 contender. Jeff, have you got a complaint there?
I'm sorry, Lachlan. Nick Armstrong and Nick Legstrong are clearly two different people. I do not know what you're talking about. I think you should just, really.
That was actually one of my complaints, Jeff, and it sounds bizarre. The fact that we got to see Nick Armstrong put his head under the ring and then come out as Nick Legstrong made it so there's no doubt. I would have really liked him to get entirely under the apron, right? And then pop out the other side, Nick Legstrong, who was under the ring the whole time. That's what I would.
Having not watched the final show, I can completely understand your complaint. Yes, they absolutely should drive into the fact that Nick Armstrong is clearly Nick Legstrong.
We shouldn't have any misunderstandings here.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. They should absolutely play it as two separate people. I agree with you. Look, it was fine. You know my thoughts on the Royal Rumble at Slam as well, the Battle Royal at Slam, because we were texting at that point. Look, this was fine. I wasn't 100% behind it. But I do think ultimately the most interesting result came through. But it could have, I wish it was a fatal four-way. I wish it was something else aside from a Battle Royal. I don't like Battle Royals either, especially live.
Yeah, see, Todd, thoughts on this one?
The difference between, and I understand what you're saying, but see, the difference between a Battle Royal and a Rumble is that a Battle Royal, if you've got 15 people, you've got to at least have that going for at least 15 minutes before you actually get down to eliminating everybody.
For a Rumble, you're correct. So the match takes 15 minutes to start.
Yeah, so I mean, that's a hell of a chunk of time you're taking out of the show. Whereas you can do a whole Rumble in 10 minutes, like a Battle Royal.
A whole Battle Royal.
In 10 minutes. And people can get all their stuff in. You can introduce people to certain guys. You can blood young guys, get them in there so they get that little taste of what it's like being in front of a crowd, but they don't get too overexposed. Like I don't mind Battle Royals because of that. You can do that sort of stuff.
But what I'm going to ask you to do is take off your Booker hat and put on your fan hat. Yeah. And as a fan,
I still don't mind them.
Oh, really?
I still don't mind them. Because even back in the day, like I think it was like WrestleMania 2, when it was like the NFL guys were in that Battle Royal with all the WWE guys. It was a good way to do it, and it was.
If your criticism of a Rumble is that it takes 15 minutes before it starts, do you not feel the same problem with a Battle Royal where you're totally disengaged until the final 4 or 5?
But you might be disengaged, but that's more to do with how the thing is booked or how the thing is organized.
I can tell you, having seen both shows live, the crowd were more engaged with the MCW one than the Slam one. The crowd, and I think definitely
part of that is that there were far fewer people in the MCW one than the Slam one. And then if I'm to compare it again to a show that happened up at Wide Bay recently where there was a Battle Royal, I think there was even a few less people in that Battle Royal, and that one came out better as well. That one had Todd in it, and Todd was able to be the kind of focus of the match for the first couple of minutes, and then that let a few people have a minute where they were the focus of the match and get eliminated. And it really made it so that I think, at least for a live audience, it was engaging because there was always something to see. Because there's so few people, everyone goes into it. The Natural 1-7 has said, personally, I start looking at my phone during a Battle Royal till it's the final 6 or so. And I think that was kind of some of the issue that I had with the MCW Battle Royal for sure, except for a couple of performers who always stand out, right? When Caveman Ugg does a tour of the caves, it always looks brilliant. And when he does it on someone the size of Jake Taylor, it's very impressive, right?
Yes.
I like to see Jean Wen on shows, and I like when it takes 3 people to eliminate Jean Wen, right? Like I'm fully behind these things. I just feel like it's too many people starting in the ring for me to feel engagement the entire time. But I am glad that I think they did try to put a focus on a few people. And Nick Galea is saying in chat, the MCW Battle Royal was fun, short and sharp, and most got a moment to show off. Jake Taylor, as an example, got a lot more out of that 5 minutes of that exposure than all his previous MCW exposure combined. That is true. I can't argue with that, right? And I think part of it is a little bit of disappointment in the result, because I think Nick Legstrong is a fun gimmick. It's such a foregone conclusion on what Nick Legstrong versus Delta for the Intercommonwealth Championship is going to be, right?
Well, I would like somehow Armstrong to interfere. Just find a way to do that, and that will be absolutely hilarious. It will be just the funniest thing, because already, even in front of that very family-based crowd, Legstrong was still getting a lot of pops. He's still so popular because it's such a bullshit gimmick. And that's said in a fun way with a smile. It's such bullshit. And it's great.
And that could have been the problem too. Like, when I look at it, it was like, why would you put your hottest babyface, like Delta is the hottest babyface in MCW, up against a guy that's really starting to get some heat as a babyface, even though he's a heel? Like, I don't know what Nick's going to have to do to get some heel heat against Delta when he's like got that gimmick going, because the gimmick's pure comedy.
He'll get that.
And either Nick gets the tar beat out of him, which is what we're all expecting, or Nick somehow weasels his way to a win, which is what we were just doing with Delta for the past 6 months with Jarvis.
I wouldn't want to see a repeat of that. I wouldn't want to see a copy and repeat, but I think it can be a really fun match. Like, I think, I'm looking forward to February to seeing what they do.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. And that part of it, I think as well, part of the reason I'm a bit down on this match is that it was either going to be Ugg wins, Emin wins, or I'm disappointed in the winner. Those were the options.
Yeah.
Right. So I think when you've got a match like this where you're supposedly putting forward a whole lot of potential number one contenders, I need to be interested in more than two of them becoming number one contender. Otherwise, I would have just preferred a triple threat match.
While I agree with you, I'd like to see what they do with Legstrong.
Yeah, Timothy Wilkes noting that Jarvis may play a role in the match, but I'm hoping that Jarvis actually stays away from Delta now that they've had that program run the length that did. And we'll mention later in the show, Jarvis really showing off his heel chops on this show in an interaction with Santa Claus.
So funny.
You know what? Let's put it in here because I can't actually remember when it happened in the show. So let's talk about it. Jarvis came out to accept his awards for Feud of the Year against Delta and Breakout Star of the Year, getting Santa Claus to come and bring him his awards, posing with Santa, all the classic stuff, and then saying, you know what? How about Santa, you present the other awards while we're here? And then Match of the Year got given to Mitch Waterman versus Buddy Matthews. And obviously neither of those guys can come out to accept it. So Jarvis just goes, well, here, give it here. That one can be mine too. And then Wrestler of the Year got awarded to and I said it before the award got given out, it was the obvious choice, Delta. And Jarvis was incensed by this, demanded the award, ended up smashing the award over the head of Santa Claus. What a great, and like you said, with a lot of kids in the audience, I think that when you do the show at the end of the year, bringing out Santa and having a heel get into it with Santa is always a winner. And I think Jarvis is absolutely perfect for that.
Jarvis was like phenomenal in that role on Sunday. And really, the nice thing was a lot of adults were laughing and the kids were horrified. It was fantastic. I really thought this was solid. I thought this was a good little segment and a great way just to reinforce how much of a shit Jarvis is.
Yeah, Todd?
Yeah, and I was thoroughly sports entertained.
Yeah.
If that,
no,
if I can,
that's Jarvis is a sports entertainer. I mean, he's good, but he's a sports entertainer.
I think
there's a fine line where that segment could have went too long.
Yes.
And they didn't do that. They kept it.
I think the thing that kind of
he
blew me away here was, Jarvis's breakout star of the year, because I had to remember, that's right, he hasn't been in this spot all that long. He's just that good.
Yeah.
Moving on to the next match on the card, Erica Reed versus Aisha. This one coming off their previous match, which was called a no contest. This one, again, being declared a no contest after both women tried absolutely just pushing the referee out of the way to beat the tar out of each other. The referee declaring this a double disqualification no contest. Before Dad came out, Rocky Monero shows up and announces that, well, after trying to keep them apart for even longer because the two women would not stop trying to get at each other, announcing that next show, February anniversary, it's going to be no holds barred between Erica Reed and Aisha. This was obviously what we were building to. As soon as this match wasn't a stipulation match, it was obvious that this was going to continue until the stipulation was at the big show in February. Because the way that first match went, and the crowd were just chanting, "Let them fight." When this one didn't get a stipulation, I was a bit surprised. I thought there was going to be a stipulation and it still wouldn't keep them, in to get the match concluded. So I'm not complaining though, because I thought that Erica and Aisha work so well together. I think they've both got great character work going on, great in-ring work going on, and I'm excited to see them in a no-holds-barred match at Anniversary. Todd?
Yeah, look, I loved this match. I loved particularly the very, very start of this match, their lockup, their strong lockup, and they wouldn't get separated. They were on the ground. They moved it. Their chain wrestling at the start is something that you just do not see a hell of a lot in when you watch quote unquote women's wrestling. You don't really see that aggression that very often. And I really loved watching that with those two. As I was watching, I was like, this is really fun. The first 2 or 3 minutes, I'm like, this is really, really good. I love how stiff they were with each other. How there was feeling. It felt like there was feeling in this match from the get-go, and I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, Jeff?
MCW have done a great job with this in a relatively short amount of time. They've made this such a good and important feud. I am so enjoying Aisha this year. Aisha's year has been fantastic since she went to the US in January, February. Really, really good. And Erica just is a terrific presence and wrestler. I honestly cannot wait for Anniversary in February to see the two of them lock up. Is it going to be the final time? Who knows? It's really exciting. It's good.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on from this, we had a tag team match that I'm going to bitch about for a little bit. So everyone just settle in. The Natural Classics defeated Shadow Alley. This one required Caveman Ugg to come out and even the odds, because even though Mick Moretti wasn't here, another clown was. Have you... Todd, what's going on? Yeah, put it away. There we go. How fucking dare they assault me with an additional clown? Are you serious, MCW? Are you fucking serious? It has been clear to everyone that if we're going to talk worst gimmicks of the year, worst storyline of the year, whatever we're talking about in Australia, for all of us, I think it was probably the clown bullshit, right? Yeah. And so now that we've finally revealed, okay, these guys are Shadow Alley, they're Mick Moretti's understudies or whatever you want to call them. We're finally past the clowns, right? It's finally Mick Moretti has these younger guys as a tag team that he's bringing up. And so what are we going to do? Another clown. I hated it. I am so mad. I think this was a waste of the Natural Classics winning the #1 contendership for the tag team titles, because I would have rather seen it literally announced that they were the #1 contenders. I think this is a waste of the talent of Shadow Alley, because like we've talked about, these guys are not nothing, right? You could have them wrestle a match and it is good. They know what they're doing and they can get over. But instead, we're just going to add another random clown to the mix, not explain who he is, and have Ugg come to sort it out. I'm made so angry by this match. So angry.
Well, not explained yet who the clown is.
Okay, but how much time did we spend not knowing who the clowns were, and then the clowns ended up being these two guys and also Mick Moretti fight clubbing himself? If that's the reveal that we're building up to, if we're building up to that level of reveal, Mick Moretti did a fight club, I'm not excited for them to do the reveal again 3 months later.
But hang on, you're judging it before the reveal. You're already mad about the reveal when you don't even know who's under the mask.
Yes.
You're already mad about it.
Because I've spent so many months being mad that they keep introducing masked people
need to medicate
to this storyline. I am medicated, you son of a bitch.
Not enough, apparently.
Lachlan, do you want? I could try and pass it through the screen if you want me.
Look, Jesus.
My take on this is, with this storyline, I'm not disappointed. I just don't care anymore. Reveal him, don't reveal him. If he comes back, great. If he never comes back, whoopee-doo. I don't think the right team won. I'm certainly not happy the Natural Classics won. Nothing against them, but they're a little stale. And the crowd response showed they're a little stale to the match overall. The crowd was just not into this match, let's be honest. I don't know how it transferred on video. But a clown? Yeah, a clown. Well, whoopee-doo. Let's see who it is.
Well, look. You all know how I feel about the Natural Classics anyway. I'm not a massive fan. My biggest issue with this match is not that it was a clown, not that they did this. It's the fact that they did it and Shadow Alley didn't win. Like, if you're going to reveal him, then have him actually sway the match so you get the win. I understand what they were doing with the whole with Ugg and all of that stuff, but that felt like a little bit of a hat on a hat. Whereas maybe there was a reason why Mick wasn't there, because Mick was supposed to be in that battle royal, and so who knows? Maybe it was something that they just had to do. Maybe originally Mick was supposed to come out in this tag match and then like get chased off by Ugg, and so they had to maybe do something, I don't know, like left field like that. I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you. But look, that's what it feels like to me.
In fairness here, MCW is building towards something really revolutionary, something that's never been done before. Mick Moretti versus Caveman Ugg.
I've never seen it done.
No, I can't imagine when that match could have possibly happened. I'll have to go and listen to the last episode of Making Chicken Salad to see if it gets mentioned as a possibility at all, or perhaps reviewed. Like we'll see, right? And look, it's going to be a good match because it always is. But do we need to introduce another clown? Because there was already the thing where Mick coming on the screen during the Battle Royale was what caused Caveman Ugg to be eliminated. So we've already got that element of it. We don't need the distraction that then fails because Ugg intervenes, because Ugg has nothing to do with the Natural Classics.
Well, he does, technically. Because they're all a part of that Rogue Army thing.
Yeah, but are they even acknowledging that the Rogue Army exists in MCW?
Well, yeah, I think they are. It's in their bloody entrance, in the Philippe's entrance. They're doing the whole thingy sign and all that sort of stuff. But I'm
Look,
I'm just giving you, like, you wanted to know why that they might be connected. That's why they might be connected.
Sure. Okay. I feel like this match wasted my time. And I think that, seriously, if they had not had the clown and Ugg stuff, I would have been able to just watch this match. But it feels like they have hit repeat on a storyline that I spent months complaining about. And it feels like, yeah, look, Nicolai is saying Rapid did the Rogue Army taunt a few times, and I just counted that as Rapid being good and knowing what he's doing, because Ryan Rapid's a good wrestler. Like, this is the thing that's making me angry, right? And we're going to talk about the Natural Classics again when we talk about Slam, because between the ropes, the Natural Classics are good professional wrestlers. Ryan Rapid is a great professional wrestler. I would love to see these guys wrestle, but instead I've got to deal with the clown bullshit after I thought the clown bullshit was over. I thought we were done.
Yeah. I would side with you by and large, Lachlan, but I'm a little more, waiting to see how it plays out.
Yeah, I want to wait and see what their end game is with this thing before.
And look, Tim Wilkes
I understand.
Tim Wilkes said story is still being told. Give it time, and I understand that. But I'm frustrated because I thought I gave it time. Right? I thought I gave it plenty of time.
Obviously, not enough. So
obviously,
not
enough.
Honestly, where would you point? Where would you point Mick to if not Caveman? Like, what would you have him do? Like, he's got to beat somebody to get to a point where he challenges for somebody who's probably a babyface champion. So maybe Delta, or maybe like Slacks when Slacks
wins.
Yeah. So you've got to tie him up somehow. And this is a way to do it, and a way it's a guaranteed good match. And doesn't really, like, Caveman can take a loss and it doesn't really matter.
And we did it in the Battle Royal already.
Yeah, but then you've added it in. You added more into it because they're a known group. So he went after the people that he could get to and stop them from doing the same thing that sort of fucked him over. And especially if they play up going forward, they play up the Rogue Army thing, it makes sense.
Okay. Look, I'll see how it plays out, but yeah, I'm really disappointed that if you wanted to make it look like the Natural Classics are threats to the tag team titles, distracting us with an additional clown and Caveman Ugg did not do that.
No. Oh, I'm more upset at the fact that they are like, you talk about a match I don't want to see. I don't really want to see Pereira in Natural Classics.
Again, much like Caveman Ugg against Moretti, it's never happened before.
Yeah, but talk about like, you talk about two baby faces up against two baby faces who are a charisma vacuum up against two guys that are like charisma personified.
Yeah.
So there's no way that the Natural Classics come out of this looking better.
No, I don't know how anyone is going to cheer the Natural Classics at that show, because even just the pre-recorded promo from the Pereira on this show was honestly one of the most entertaining parts of the show. Those guys have so much charisma, so much understanding of their characters, such an effortless way of showing that they're villains, but they're villains because they know how good they are. They're superb. I think that
the Pereira have a lot of cool heel things about them, and it is that we know how good we are, so let's be fun. They're not heels, and it's becoming more and more evident every time they hit the ring. Anyway, let's move on.
All right, let's move on to Slex defeating JK Moody in a singles match here, being the third time these two have faced each other. The rubber match, Slex coming out on top of this one. I love JK Moody. I think that it's nice to see the New Zealand talent get some representation on some of the bigger Aussie shows. And I think JK Moody is a star. He has every move that you could ask for. He is able to get heat really easily. I think that between the work and the character, J.K. Moody is basically the full package, and that's without hearing him talk.
He's good. He's good. This was a nice match. I really enjoyed this one.
Yeah, this is a real case of put a really good worker in with Slacks and polish him up for Buddy Matthews in February.
Yep. Yeah,
which is like it's one of those things where I even looked at. I didn't realize the dates, but if I didn't have a match myself, I probably would have tried to get to Melbourne for that anniversary weekend.
You're still avoiding me though, Todd. So let's be honest.
Another reason. Another reason. The restraining order is still in effect.
Yeah, you can't get within 50 feet of me, mate. Come on.
Is that right that that's the weekend that you're in a triple threat match for the Pro Wrestling League Heavyweight Championship, Todd?
I do believe so.
Yeah, okay. Just, jot that down. Yeah, I thought that this was... Obviously, Slex can't lose at this point because he's got to go up against Buddy Matthews and I assume bring the title back into an Australian's hands. Like that. So you definitely don't want Slex looking weak. And by having J.K. Moody, who is a really, really good wrestler, you've got someone who can definitely take the loss without it being huge damage to them. And I think Moody ends up looking better because he's going to be exposed to more people. And when you look that good in a match against Slex, the assumption is, he could probably beat 3/4 of the people on the card. Because, holding your own against Slex is no easy feat. So I thought this was really well done. Moving on.
And unless you look at that MCW roster, and there was no one really on that roster that you could put at that level to do that job that J.K. Moody did. So it was a really, really, really good match. I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to go as far as to say that was my match of the night.
Yeah.
I really will.
It'll definitely be close for me. After this, we had the promise was that the gift would be unveiled as Robbie Thorpe met Rocky Monero in the ring. Timothy Wilkes says, last I checked his passport, Buddy is Australian, Lachlan. Tim, someone who lives in Australia is what I meant to say.
Yeah, last time I checked, I don't think
he's
lived here in the last decade.
Yeah. But after this, Robbie and Rocky Monero were going to meet in the ring, and that they did. Rocky Monero coming out as a special guest referee and announcing that Robbie Thorpe's match would be against Delta. Delta dropping Robbie Thorpe in not too much time in this one to keep her looking as strong as she obviously should. A furious Robbie Thorpe after the match, locking the rings of Saturn in on Rocky Monero, setting up some animosity between them. We all knew this was going to be something tricksy. There was never going to be a match between Robbie and Rocky. Otherwise, they wouldn't have said that they will meet in the ring. So we all knew that match wasn't happening. It was just a matter of what will happen. I think using this as a platform to keep Delta looking as powerful as she has been looking was a good choice. I think that Robbie didn't end up looking too hurt from this match because everyone loses to Delta at the moment, but he got to look like a mean son of a bitch by hurting Rocky Monero. And Rocky looks like the tricksy face general manager that he is by going, you thought you were getting me? Psych, Delta time. I think that this was a cleverly put together little segment.
That pop for Delta is getting louder and louder and louder. And it's not just in Melbourne. It seems to be everywhere she goes. She is one of the most popular acts in the country. I thought this was terrific. This is your sports entertainment segment as well, It really is. It's complete sports entertainment buffoonery, but boy, was it fun. And the crowd were right there and right into it. So, loved it.
Well, we keep saying Delta may be very ripe for some sports entertainment. So, perfect showcase for how versatile she is. Todd?
Yeah, and it was like there was a show. It was a showcase for both. A showcase for Delta because she dispatched Robbie pretty quickly, but Robbie wasn't hurt by it because you don't really remember that she got like that he got absolutely squashed by Delta, because all you remember from the end of that is him leaving Rocky in that ring laying. So he's lost nothing by that. The crowd got their pops from Delta. They got to progress the story with him and Rocky going forward, which is obviously going to somehow end up into a match. It's got to be. Well, that's the way it has to end. You would imagine. So, and if Rocky has said, look, this is a kid I want to work with, then the kid obviously has something, because Rocky doesn't work with like nobodies.
Yeah, Nick Galea obviously agrees. Nick saying Robbie Thorpe is one of the best character wrestlers in the country, but he also has the knack of being able to go from being a joke character to a killer at the drop of a hat. We talk about people with big futures. I reckon Robbie Thorpe isn't long for our shores. Yeah, really good point.
I think he'll be here for a little while, because in his real world, he's just got a young baby. So I think he'll be here for a little while yet. But I agree with you, Nick. Long term, he won't be here. Like in the next 3 or 4 years, he'll be gone. And Cobra Jones saying won't be long until Delta is signed to the big leagues. Cobra, we've actually been saying that for a fair while.
Matter of time. The main event of the evening, the third sacrament to take place between Adam Brooks and Edward Dusk. This one resolving in Brooksy finally getting a win in the sacrament, putting the first Dusk sacrament loss on the scoreboard. I think that this one was crazy. There were thumbtacks, tables, ladders, chairs, steel piping, chains. Not much more you could ask for in a sacrament match. What did you think of it, Jeff?
My thoughts about this match are really complex. The match itself was very, very good. Really, two great workers, two guys who click and gel and work well together. My issue was the result. Dusk should not have lost that match. Dusk should absolutely not have lost that match. If he lost a one-on-one, I was thinking about it. If he lost a one-on-one match to Adam Brooks, I'm fine with that. But it lessens the impact of the sacrament, and I kind of wanted Dusk to go undefeated until someone beat him for the championship. I kind of wanted to see Dusk absolutely bed down that character more. Now, I haven't heard last week's show yet, Todd, so I don't know what Edward thinks about it himself. But I really think that as one of the future strong characters, I would have preferred him not to lose at this point.
Okay. So if I was to, I'll paraphrase because I can't remember exactly what he said. But it was along the lines of he might have lost the match, but in the end, Dusk still won because he made Adam Brooks do something he would never normally do. He made Adam Brooks a different person by the end of this thing.
So can I jump in here, Todd? Because, again, yes. I also haven't listened to the show from last week, and I will by just going onto the podcast player of my choice, searching for Wrestle Radio Australia, hitting subscribe, and being able to download all those previous episodes, right? So I'm going to listen to the interview that Todd did with Edward Dusk while we were down in Canberra. But the way that I watched this match, and towards the end, I had the thought of, this is WrestleMania 30 with Wyatt and Cena, except...
Thank you, Ray.
Yeah, Ray said, what is wrong with you both? Where is the research from last week? Been busy, okay? This was what should have been done in that match, where it was, if you remember, Wyatt begging to be hit by a chair by Cena, and Cena ended up saying no and then beating Wyatt anyway. Right? Whereas the outcome of that match for Wyatt to look strong would have either been for Wyatt to win or for Cena to win because he gave in. And that's what we saw here, was that Brooksy gave in. He used that steel pipe, and then he could have just gone for the cover, but he didn't. He used the environment of the sacrament to inflict more damage than was necessary to Dusk, because Dusk had gotten in his head. He did a from the top of the ladder through tables swanton bomb after doming him with a steel pipe, right? That is the victory that Dusk got out of this. And as someone who loves that kind of storytelling, the long arc of these things where someone can have a quote-unquote victory even in losing a match. I think that was really cleverly done. And I think that it puts a very neat bow on this storyline to then set Edward Dusk up as a very strong challenger for, I assume, Slex's heavyweight championship. Todd, do you want to go on any further?
Yeah, it was the way he described it is that, like, he's basically, for this past year, it been existing in his own universe, which is the Sacrament. So what will happen now when Edward Dusk is released into their environment? Like, because that's a whole different kettle of fish now.
That's an interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting way to look at it. I find Dusk a fascinating character. You know.
Yeah, you would have found the interview fascinating if you listened to it, but that's fine.
One of the things I've been thinking about.
Did you listen to Board of Games today, Todd? Did you listen to our podcast?
What was that?
Did you
listen
to
Board of Games on any podcast catch?
I don't play board games. I mean I co-host a wrestling podcast like my two partners here. And I would think, I don't know, maybe while traveling, maybe had time to sit down and listen to something. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just,
One of the things I've been thinking recently about Edward Dusk, to make this more professional for a moment, I know, me doing that, is that if I was someone like WWE, I would almost be disappointed that he has so much quality in ring work left, because the man has such a mind for the business that he feels like he could slot in as a producer tomorrow and make the product high quality for whatever he is working on. He is thinking so deeply about every aspect of everything he does. And I'm saying this again without having heard that episode, Todd, where I'm sure you can see just how deeply he thinks about these things and how well planned and precise all of this stuff is. The man is one of, I think, the best minds for the business in the country.
Absolutely. And we talked about that for like 2 hours. But I mean, it's fine.
All right. Thanks. Well, you know what, Todd?
What?
Whatever.
Here's my answer to that. I'm not going to listen to it now on principle. You've just summarized it all for me really nicely. Thanks, mate.
Yeah, brilliant. And look, if you want wrestling summarized for you really
nicely,
you can subscribe to Wrestle Radio Australia on the platform of your
We're getting Lachlan shitty now. He's getting angry with us. Dad's getting angry.
Trying to cut to commercial because we've still got a lot more to cover. So I don't want.
Are you ready for the commercial, Todd?
What? No, never.
Okay.
I don't want anyone going anywhere. I want to move on. I want to tell everyone to follow us on Facebook at Wrestle Radio Australia, on Twitter at Wrestle Radio AU. Get amongst it. Make sure you're subscribed, because we are going to be back to talk about Slam Pro Wrestling, to talk about the news around the world of wrestling, and to talk about our chicken salad and chicken shit right after this. And now, for all the people who are still here.
Yes. Okay, now this is only going to be a quick break because it's all I could really do in this quicker time. It's just the highlights of Endgame and then some interviews from after Endgame. So we'll do that, and then we'll be back after this.
We'll catch you soon, lads.
Right here on Wrestle Radio Australia.
Rocky, you embarrassed me tonight, so I had to embarrass you. And I've been trying to wrap my brain for months. You bring the gift Robbie Thorpe to MCW just to embarrass me. Why? That's the question, right? Why? And I looked in your eyes tonight and saw in that smug mug of yours jealousy. You looked at the gift Robbie Thorpe and known that you have never had what I have. In your whole career, you will never be as fast as me, as strong as me, as big as me, have a full head of hair, be as good looking as me. I have everything. I'm a superstar. I have it. I was born with it. And as an Australian icon, you couldn't stand the fact that I've been given every gift in this business whilst you had to dedicate your life to wrestling. So guess what? My apprenticeship in this business is a bit different to yours, Rocky. And the next time we meet face to face in that ring, I'm going to give you the greatest gift of all, and that's going to be pain. I gave you a little taste tonight. So I'm telling you right now, Rocky, the gift may have been built in Britain, but Robbie Thorpe will be made in Melbourne.
Go through and
Unmute
unmute
yourself.
everyone because people weren't necessarily muted when they should have been. Yeah, I thought Endgame was really good. Now we get to
I
talk
enjoyed
about
it.
Slam. All right, who's doing the gimmick, boys?
What gimmick?
What gimmick?
What gimmick?
Welcome back to Making Chicken Salad, the Wrestle Radio Australia show,
Oh,
where we talk about
sorry.
everything going on around the world of wrestling. We still have a lot of Aussie wrestling to talk about. Specifically, Slam Pro Wrestling League in Canberra had their Rage in the Cage show this past weekend in Canberra. And both Jeff and I were in attendance at this one. So we're going to talk about everything that went on there. Overall, this show was massive with a huge reported 1,700 plus in attendance. So that is a really massive turnout for a show that didn't have any international talent on it, which is so good to see. Unless you count Robbie Eagles as an international talent, of course. But I think that this show was really good. It was definitely a family-friendly style promotion. So, you know, it's not going to be the top to bottom bangers kind of card. Some of it is going to be more character-based, more, you know, appealing to the kids in the crowd. But I think they did such a good job of having a show that taught people how to respond to wrestling because they had such a huge crowd, a lot of people who wouldn't have necessarily been to a local wrestling show before. Before we kick into it, Todd, Jeff, do you have any overall thoughts on Rage in the Cage?
I've got two, but both of them fed into my chicken shit. So I'll give you those later.
Todd, overall
one
thoughts?
specifically.
Okay. I'll say straight up, the presentation was amazing. It looked like A+ level, like for a company like Slam, who are really, really, really very young in their careers.
2021, I believe, December 2021.
So there you go. So you got like a year, basically a year under their belt. They drew in, like you said, 1,700 people. I'm going to guess a good 1,500, say a good like 1,200 of those people probably don't go to their shows on a regular basis. So you got 1,200 people that are basically the only wrestling they probably would have seen is on WWE. or maybe AEW, more WWE. So, and Jeffrey drops out for a second. So for them to make that arena, that the whole theme look as WWE as possible, as professional as possible, that was absolutely perfect. For that was an amazing job done by the production, done by the back of house team to make that look so good, to make that look such an A-level promotion for a promotion that's a year old, and Absolutely. For them to pull off to make it their biggest show ever, and to pull off a live stream, which basically, aside from a few little black spots in it, it was like a perfect production. Like this, there was no real sound issues. Only sound issues I maybe would pick up on is just like the ring mic, the in-ring mic for the ring announcers could possibly be done a little bit better. But aside from that, for it to be perfectly live streamed the way it was, I think they did an amazing job when it came to it.
I have very few complaints about this show. I'll get, I guess, the biggest one that I have out early, because it was one of the few things that actually bothered me about the show, was that the ring announcer, and again, as someone who does ring announcing, I tend to be more tuned into this. The ring announcer was doing a pretty clearly fake American accent, which bothered me a bit, because it meant that it was actually harder to understand what he was saying.
You know what he was doing, don't you?
He was doing a Howard.
You know what he was doing? Yeah, he was doing a Finkel.
Yeah. He was doing
Howard Finkel.
He was trying to be the love child of Howard Finkel and Bruce Buffer, was the way I put it.
But if you listen to it, their voiceover, everything going into it has always been done with that like American accent. I don't know if that's maybe.
I don't have a problem with that pre-recorded, because they did it in a way that sounded big and grandiose and sounded like an American doing it, even though it probably wasn't. Whereas I think that you've really got to see how it sounds in that microphone before the show and go, do we do this for the whole show?
I'd actually be interested to know if he is American or not, because if he is American, you're saying he obviously put on a fake American accent. It's kind of mean, but
sorry, it was not his voice. He was definitely putting on a voice that really pulled me out of it.
This was one of my chicken shits, actually, and so we might as well discuss it now. It was absolutely distracting, to the point where there were a lot of people in the crowd going, and including, kids were doing it.
I had kids around me doing it, right?
Weren't taking it seriously. It's not necessary. They really made a mark on Australian wrestling with this show, and also a lot. It's just not necessary, and it became quite irritating.
The only thing too that I would point out is that it felt like he was talking at the crowd and not to the crowd.
Yep. And I think it's worth saying that when we're being this critical of the ring announcing for a show, it shows the quality of the show. Yeah. Right? Obviously, as a ring announcer, I tend to rate it very highly and think it's very important. The same way that, like, I'm sure Todd, when there's a manager, tends to think that, that's really important to be done right, because we see the ways that it affects a crowd, right? So that one got in my grit a little bit, but I think that if that's the major criticism I've got of the show they put on, that shows the quality that was shown to a huge number of non-wrestling fans. And I can speak to the fact that as we were leaving, we heard multiple people either saying that they wanted to start training to be a professional wrestler because they didn't think you could do it in Australia, or saying we need to get tickets to the next Slam show, and scanning the QR codes that were handed out. So we saw that this show worked to get people into Australian wrestling, and that is the best praise that there can be.
And excitingly, I spoke to Luke, the new champion, and he will hook us up to watch some more shows, which is quite wonderful. It's a good little promo. It's a good little promotion.
So we'll start at the top of the card. The opening contest, Slex defeating Tommy Knight in what I kind of said to the people around me was a lesson in what wrestling is when you watch it in person. These two, this is not a criticism of the match. I think these two could have wrestled this match in their sleep.
Yeah.
Right? This was a very by the book. This is how you progress a wrestling match step by step. This is how you teach the crowd to respond to certain things. Because like we said, for over 1,000 of the people in this building, this would have been their first time being at a live pro wrestling show, or at least one that wasn't WWE produced. So there's an element of, hey, you're not going to hear the commentators. Someone's going to do this, and then you need to respond. And Slex and Tommy Knight are kind of the perfect people to teach that lesson, because Slex can get a crowd on board without blinking. And Tommy Knight is such a formidable heel that it just worked. They got in there, they did their thing, and the crowd was on board for the rest of the show. That was the job that they had to do, and they did it flawlessly, and I was very impressed.
I would agree with you 100%. I think these two also have a lot of chemistry. They didn't hold back either. So they run the risk of, because this is such an easy match to pace out and an educational match for the audience, you know, some of those shots might not go in as hard as they could. Whereas I found that they absolutely went hard at each other, and they absolutely laid those shots in. The forearms and the punches were real, and it really brought the crowd in and brought the crowd in that ring. And it didn't matter where you sat, you felt those punches. And I thought that was a real credit to both of them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Todd, what was this one like on the stream?
Very much like you said, it was your I say standard, but it was your standard like opening match. It introduced that crowd to, look, this is the wrestling, this is what it is, and you had two of the guys that are pretty much two of the best in the country to do it for you. So they're not seeing guys that are missing things. You're not hearing the guys talk to each other. You're not hearing. There's very few cracks in their work. So they got, like, straight away, they got to listen. Oh, okay. Slex is obviously the good guy. Tommy's the bad guy. We're gonna cheer Slex. We're gonna boo Tommy. This is how wrestling is for the rest of the night. Sort of a deal.
Perfect.
I heard one of the kids behind me turn to his dad and say, "I'm gonna cheer for Tommy, and there's nothing you can do about it." I thought that was one of the best things I'd ever heard, because clearly the kid was so into it that he was like, I see that this is the bad guy, but he's cool, so I like him. You know, and that's what wrestling is. That's you find your passion in the match. And I thought it was so great that even for the little kids who wanted to go against what they were being presented, they could get into it. I thought that was wonderful. Yeah. Moving on from here, a really stellar performance from Dan Archer, showing off what he can do, even in defeat up against Robbie Eagles. There is not much that we can say that hasn't already been said about Robbie Eagles. And he is such a gentleman and such a giving performer that the way he showed off how good. Yeah, Tim Wilkes said, "Admit it, Lachlan, you said that to Jeff." That's exactly what I said to Jeff. I'm cheering Tommy Knight. There's nothing you can do about it.
He did.
Yeah, what Robbie Eagles did for Dan Archer here, he did not need to do. Robbie did not need to take more than 2 moves from Dan Archer. But instead, this was a competitive, fast-paced, hard-hitting, stellar wrestling match. This was great stuff.
Yeah, I would agree. And before I go into the match, Dan Archer's performance at WrestleBrainia the night before was incredible. To the point where he walked out, and I said to Bros, who I was sitting next to, I bet you he's getting a few cheers from everyone that was at WrestleBrainia last night, because he was just head and shoulders, and literally head and shoulders, but also so phenomenally funny.
Other than a man who'll pick ruthless aggression as his specialty topic and not know who the SmackDown 6 are.
Yeah, and can do a, without peer impersonation of Randy Savage. I have not heard any
Incredible.
that are. You would swear Savage was in the room. Anyway, this was great. Robbie, you said it yourself. Robbie gives so much. And it's not just to Dan Archer, but it's to everyone he's in the ring with. He gives so much offense, and he's so happy just being there in that ring and getting a young person over. Dan came out of this looking like $1 million. So I was really pleased to see Dan get that spotlight and do such a great job.
Todd?
Yeah, like is a decent sized lad too. When you looked at him coming out, I was like, oh geez, he's got a bit of size on him, especially when you see him next to Robbie as well. Because I know Robbie's not a giant or anything, but like he still looked and like in great shape as well, and that's really helped him along there. It was a really, really good match. I feel like he maybe tapped a little early in that finish, just timing wise. But yes, Jeff.
Yeah, but he had the battle royal, so he was probably thinking about the like in terms of seamless storytelling. He was probably thinking about the battle royal later that night and wanted to make sure that he got out of that hold as quickly as possible.
I also think that if a Ron Miller special gets locked in, you should tap immediately so that you don't have your legs broken and can't work the next few weeks. You know what I mean? Like, I think that typically submissions get held too long before someone taps. I think that's the problem.
All right. I mean,
that's a difference of opinion there.
Yeah, no. Like watching it on the stream, it looked like Robbie had barely put it on. Like he hadn't really properly locked it in when things just started. I was just like, oh, I thought it was a bit early, because you still got to show that little bit of fight and then a little bit of struggle before you do it, because this isn't real. It's not fucking MMA. It's real.
There was a nice touch because later that night, Dan was out and about and he was still selling the leg. He was
limping all night.
He was limping all night. It was terrific. Even, I will add, even at King O'Malley's at around 1 a.m. when I walked past him, he was limping. So he was still...
Sure he just legit wasn't actually...
He couldn't. Well, no, because I did see him in a car park the next morning with his wife. And I said, morning, Dan. And he walked past me and was fine. So he was clearly just having fun, working people and selling the leg. And a great job too, Dan. Just wonderful.
Yeah. So moving on from this one, we had a Slam tag team title match with the Velocities becoming the new Slam tag team champions, taking the belts from the Natural Classics. We have just talked about the Natural Classics over at Melbourne City Wrestling. Todd, how do you feel their performance was against the Velocities here in Slam?
No, I don't know. No. I don't know if I'm going to catch some flack over this and I don't mean anything by it, because I love the Velocities. As guys, as workers, they're great. Natural Classics, we both like. I call them the Beige Brothers. Like, that's what I feel about it. Their wrestling's equivalent to beige. I'm just overseeing both teams at the moment. I don't know if that's. Do you know what I mean? Like, as an instance, I watched Deck the City Hall, the Newcastle Newey Pro Christmas show, and they were in the tag team title match, and I actually groaned when they won the tag team titles.
Which they? Sorry, the
Velocities.
Yeah,
sorry.
Right. Okay, thank you. No, it just wasn't clear, mate. That's it.
Yeah, no. I just, yeah. It might have been that I've just seen a lot of them over the last couple of weeks. I saw them against Jessica Troy, and then I saw them at Newey Pro, and then I saw them at exactly, Alex. Alex's overexposure in case of velocity. I think that maybe that's what it is for me, because generally as wrestlers, as workers, as a team, I do enjoy them. I've been lucky enough to be able to work with them. They're
with
great,
full respect. I couldn't disagree more. Right. I've got this feel. I'm so hot on the Velocities right now because I've got that feeling of people are going to realize how good they are, and I want to see them every day of the week until they get taken away from us. Like that's where I'm at with them.
See, now, I don't know. I think you've got to To me,
For me,
Boom, boom.
I'm tired of the natural classics way more. Like my fatigue level for the natural classics is quite high, way more than Jude and Paris.
oh,
And
100%.
I think it's because the natural classics had that failed singles run earlier on this year, and there's no other way to look at it. They both failed. Both of those singles run failed. I'm kind of happier they're back together, but I still think they should go away for a while. Saying that, they were much better as heels in this match than as baby faces against Shadow Ali. Nick Galea said it earlier, and I cannot agree more strongly. The natural classics are heels. Let's just make them heels.
Fully
They're
agree.
just like-
And
Like it's amazing wrestlers when the bell rings. Amazing wrestlers, but just
Completely.
like absolute charisma vacuums. They would be perfect in New Japan because you don't have to show that so much.
yeah, but that's what I enjoyed about this match was that I can feel the charisma of the Velocities from 2 states away. Like, I think those guys are so naturally charismatic. You so immediately want them to win when you see them in a ring, especially once you see their wrestling style. It so draws you in. And then seeing the Natural Classics able to fully embody that heel persona of very good wrestlers who know that they're very good wrestlers, who know that they are traditionally good-looking men, who have everything that you could ever want, and they're the champions, and they've got the belts, and what are you going to do about it? And then seeing those 2 little kids full of heart, the Velocities, get in there and do 6 flips and take those belts and hit that incredible Phoenix splash to get the win. I loved this match. It was everything I want the Natural Classics to be, nothing more, nothing less. And
See, I
it's
just find
everything
them
I love about the Velocities.
I just find them robotic. Like the music hits and they walk through. We are bad guys now. We will do this. Check us out. I am
Yeah,
in
robots
good
are
shape.
cool though, Todd.
No, clowns are cool.
Clown. Okay, so here's our disagreement. Todd's a clown guy. I'm a robot guy. We've worked it out. Now, robot clowns. So
And
yeah,
I'm only
I
here
thought-
for Mandalorian references.
So I thought this was really good. After this, we had our last match before an intermission, a loser leaves Slam, no disqualification match between Vinnie Bronson and Crofty. Vinnie Bronson bringing his Bronson United buddy to the ring because, hey, no disqualification. It's basically 2-on-1. Why not have an extra guy? I'm not going to get disqualified because of it. Something that I think is massively underdone in wrestling. Like having a no disqualification match and taking that advantage where you can get it. Crofty, at the end of this one, left the Flano in the ring and took a bow. Seems to be whether he's stepping out of Slam or stepping out of wrestling entirely, not sure. My feeling is that as a Canberra native, that might be it for Crofty's career. And if it is, this was a really impressive way to go out. This had chaos all over the ring. I was personally disappointed in the finish, which had a submission locked on to Crofty. The ref did the gimmick of raising the hand and dropping it, and Crofty didn't drop the hand all the way. He showed he was still alive. And then moments later, the referee called that Crofty couldn't continue, and by ref stoppage, he lost the match. Don't do both of those things, is what I think, right? If you're going to call it by ref stoppage, don't try the drop the hand thing. Because what you've shown is that there's still life in Crofty. He's still going to fight. And then the ref goes, no, he can't fight anymore. Call it. So I didn't like that. But other than this was a no DQ match that, not my style of match, but the crowd was so on board. They really played to the fact that Crofty was a local and that Vinnie Bronson is such an easily hateable British accented heel. It was exactly what this show needed at this point, I think.
I had a problem with this in that Crofty was covering Vinny several times, and the Bronson United partner just hung around outside the ring. Like, had he tried to get in to break it up, it continues the continuity of the match. That never happened. And it kind of made it obvious that Vinny was just going to kick out. You know, it made you go, well, he's going to kick out because the other guy's outside the ring. And
sorry, yeah, I also the name of Vinny's partner, his full name is extremely memorable. Don't know how we've forgotten it. Josh.
Yeah, well, Josh was just standing outside the ring, didn't do anything, and then, you know, the end happened. So I would have liked Josh to be a bit more animated and try and get in, and in fact do the chicken shit heel thing of kicking Crofty off and then a chase around the ring, and then Vinny elbow drops him from the apron or something to just give it a little bit more, because that really disappointed me. Otherwise, nice match.
Here's the problem I had with it was Vinny hits Crofty with brass knucks once and then locks the submission on him. So why wouldn't you just pummel the shit out of him with brass knucks and then lock it in when the guy's already passed out cold?
Yeah.
That's a good point too.
I'll also say, because I was quite impressed with Vinnie Bronson in this match, but one of the slight moments where I think he may have not gotten as much as he could have is making it clear that he had hit Crofty with brass knuckles. I don't know if that fully came across to the crowd, because he got the hit in, he showed him off quickly, and then he went straight into that submission. I think if he'd spent a few seconds bragging about having the hit with the knuckles, because it's no disqualification. He can hold him up for as long as he likes. The ref's not going to call him on it.
I think you're maybe misremembering it a bit, because I only just watched it today. He held those brass knuckles up for a fair amount of time.
What I'll say, Todd, is the people I was with at the show, we were like, that was a weird finish, wasn't it? And we opened the YouTube and went back and watched it and went, oh, he had brass knucks. That's what happened.
Okay. Because watching it was very clear what had happened on the
right.
On the
it might just be an element of when you're working with a crowd that size, you need to go full panto with it. You cannot hide for a second what's happened. I'm wondering if, and again, because it's been a few days ago now, did he hold his fist up with the knuckles on? Because it might just have been an element of it looked like he was just holding his fist up.
Yeah,
like, I punched him.
The knuckles were on.
We couldn't see the knuckles from where we were sitting.
And then he slowly brought it down and then took it off and then into his pants. So it was very pronounced what he did.
But to be fair,
I missed it.
You were sitting a fair way back.
I was. I wasn't front row, I'll tell you that. But it goes to show how well everyone else did on this show that there wasn't anything else where I feel like from a huge distance back, I missed anything. And that was the one point where I thought maybe it was unclear. So, look, benefit of the doubt then to Bronson there. That might have just been that, I was too interested in my wedges at the time, maybe. Because compliments to the venue, those wedges were good.
They were good wedges.
Good. And they came with sweet chili and sour cream. It was awesome. So after the intermission, after Crofty's farewell, the Slam Women's title was on the line. The first ever Slam Women's champion is Kingsley after defeating Jimbro Jesse. Some use of the gimmicks in this one with Kingsley grabbing Jimbro Jesse's protein, the ref taking it away, and Kingsley using that distraction to splash the cup of tea into Jesse's face and get the win. This is probably the weakest match on the card, in my opinion. And I think that part of it is that Kingsley and Jimbro Jesse both have such good gimmicks that when you're appealing to a crowd this size with this many kids, that I wonder if maybe they were more into trying to play up the gimmicks than they were trying to work the match. I thought that the match wasn't bad by any means, but I thought every other match on the card outshone this one fairly easily. But I also want to give credit to, after the show, the amount of kids especially who were lined up wanting to talk to Jimbro Jesse, get an autograph. The fact that the face in defeat was able to get that support from the young audience so well speaks to how good she is in that character. I worry that Kingsley straddled the face heel line a little too much, because there was a lot of cheers when she won, even after cheating.
I think the problem is they could have done a hype video to really cement the heel status of Kingsley, and this is a small criticism I have of this show, is coming out of the interval. Had there been a hype video with Kingsley and Jimbro really talking about, hey, you know, really cementing the whole I'm a clean living, working out, you know, I'm buff and I'm strong and I'm an independent, and then Kingsley comes along and goes, I don't care what you are, you know, does the whole bitchy heel gimmick she does so well. I think it would have been a bit better. I agree with you completely that the crowd by the end cheered Kingsley's win. Kingsley is a really wonderful wrestler, a lovely person, but if she's going to be a heel, she's really got to dive into being a heel, and I don't think she quite did.
I think it's maybe a little bit of the problem we were talking about before with the Pereira, where she is a naturally charismatic person. So if you are going to take that into a heel gimmick, you really need to play up the heel element of it. Otherwise, people are just going to notice that you're likable.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of heels.
We'll get to that. Todd?
Look, honestly, this was sloppy. I hate to say it, but it just was. And watching the stream, you could hear Kingsley calling out spots to Jesse, which really just tells me that like Jesse's got a good character, very likable, but still very green. Still very, very green for what she is. I prefer Kingsley in this role rather than the whole backslide girls, where I just don't know what that is. But
I think we all agree on that.
Yeah, I just wasn't. I was very much like, okay, that was a match. It wasn't really like having heard, like, when you can audibly hear like Kingsley lock when she did I think she did a belly to belly on Jimbro. She locks it in, and you audibly hear her go, "Ready, go," like that. Sort of takes you out of it. Now, I don't know if that's just because, like, you wouldn't have heard it where you were, Lachlan.
God, no.
Being on, like, the stream and on TV, I heard it quite clear. I felt like John Cena was wrestling. But it was just – but it's stuff like that. It just was – yeah. I'm sure in, like, a year or so, Jesse's going to be really good, like, for a lot further along, because just where she trains. But at the moment – I almost feel like this was almost too soon for her to be put in this spot.
And again, I wonder if that is a symptom of just ring time, right? Like, I don't know how many matches Jimbro Jessie has had. And when she was on shows, she was working as a manager for back pain. I don't necessarily think she was in the ring really for those matches. So there's easy growth for her.
And I know it sounds like I'm being an asshole about it, but I'm just like, this is what I'm seeing when I watch it.
I just opened up Cage Match. There's 23 recorded matches total for Jimbro Jessie.
And I think Kingsley's excellent. Like, let's not kid ourselves. Kingsley is great. And I'm so much happier, and I agree with you, Todd, to see her do this gimmick rather than the backslide girls, which just, for me, there's a disconnect there, to be honest. It's a huge disconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. Moving on from this, and speaking of heels, a 20-man battle royale, which I think is too many. This one had Cyclone Jr., Dan Archer, Dazza, E10, Goran Nikolov, Hugh Beatty, Jay Sorbet, Genghis Kong, Jimmy Townsend, Jordan Locke, King Vance, Lee Morrow, Randy Chambers, Rig, Skull, Slamu, the Goblin Kid, the Grand Ick, and the Tuck Man, as well as the eventual winner, Ricky South. Jeff, tell me about the battle royal.
Look, the first 2/3 were terrible. I've got to be honest.
Yeah.
There were just too many people. They were flying out of the ring. We didn't care. We didn't know who they were. To be honest, it was around that time that people in my row started asking me if I wanted another beverage. So we were, non-alcoholic, of course. So we were completely disinterested. But then Rig really stepped up, wearing clearly some kind of jersey of a
Newcastle
non-local
Knights.
sporting team. And yeah, that was it. We should add that Vander the Viking and something else from the Canberra Raiders mascots
Yes.
were special guest ring enforcers that made me wonder what acid I dropped.
They're
before
like
the show.
sports mascots, right?
See, you can say
Yeah.
that, mate, but
Yeah.
the ovation they got coming out and the crowd participation they had coming out.
So over.
I was so
No,
confused.
I'm not arguing with the fact that they were incredibly popular. However, saying all of that, what made this was Richard's promo afterwards was absolutely phenomenal. He is the example, and he was so funny. He really had a lot of people believing he was going to give that check up. Whereas if you've watched him for the last year, you're just going, there is no way he's giving that check up. I thought he was great. I thought, look, the right person won. It wasn't going to be him. I wanted it to be Dan Archer because obviously Dan suffering the loss. I wanted to see him rebuild a bit of his heat. But once Ricky came out, look, it was that foregone conclusion of, there's your winner. And it was a really, the last, say, 6 or 7 minutes were great. Really enjoyable.
Yeah, the post-match promo of Ricky South refusing to donate money to sick kids. Like, that's classic heel work, right?
So
Todd,
good.
what did you reckon?
Yeah, no, I agree. I love that Rig played up the old hometown like rivalry thing, coming out very proudly wearing his Newcastle Knights because he's a Newy boy.
Yeah.
So he comes out
Is
wearing
that-
Newcastle Knights.
Is it NRL?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I had a
And
bunch
his
of
whole
kids
gimmick-
around me yelling, throw the guy with the Newcastle Knights jumper out. I'm like, great. Rig's done a great
Yeah.
job here.
And his whole gimmick is like the Chief Rig, and Chief is a tribute to Paul Harrigan, who was nicknamed the Chief, who was a legendary figure in Newcastle Knights, like
There you go.
rugby team. So yeah, it's a very
I knew he was a footy
Rig's-
guy,
yeah.
not Rig.
Sorry.
I knew that Rig's character was a footy guy. I didn't know anything beyond.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
But
I originally
man,
started
Rig
out
can
like
do a cannonball. I just want to watch Rig do
Oh,
cannonball.
such a good cannonball.
Yeah.
I said to the
Unbelievable
mate
work.
that I was sitting with, I turned to him, I said, I just want to see him do a cannonball because that man's got the best cannonball in Australia, maybe the world. And my mate Eric was like, okay. And then Rig did a cannonball, and Eric was like, that's the best. It is truly excellent. Now, this is a personal, I know nobody else cares about this except for me and the 3 people I was sitting with. If anyone can get me information as to who was under the Goblin Kid mask, because they shimmied for the entire match. After they were eliminated, they shimmied at the referee. I thought it was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Them being eliminated, shimmying at the referee, and then shimmying their way to the back. I know that previously Luke Watts has worked under that gimmick. There's no way it was Luke Watts. I need to know who the Goblin Kid was. They've got a future. I will campaign to get them booked on every show that there is. Goblin Kid forever.
Look,
Moving-
it's time for you to be honest, Todd. Come out in the open. It was you, wasn't it, mate?
I was busy interviewing Dust, but you would know that if you listened.
Moving
No, this
on.
was Saturday night, not Friday, mate. You were completely free.
Keep up.
Keep up. You'd know that if you read the show notes.
All right, the main event, the Slam title match in a steel cage. Mikey Broderick, the champion, defending against the Hope from the Top Rope, Luke Watts. They made the really great choice of having the entire history of this feud play on the big screen while the cage was assembled, which gave all of these people who had never been to a Slam show before full context for what was going on, why they should be supporting Luke Watts. It distracted from them putting together the cage, gave them plenty of time to put together the cage, which, this is going to sound like a crazy compliment, one of the best cages I've ever seen in Australian wrestling, right? A cage is a precarious object. This one was clearly well made, well put together, made it easier to enjoy the match because we weren't thinking about the nature of the cage. Which I've seen some cage matches in Australia before where I'm not paying attention to the match. I'm going, please, for the love of God, let this cage hold together. This is going to hurt someone. So credit to the cage.
I've known shows where the cage was getting built during the show.
I've known shows where trainees come out and actually hold the cage.
Hold up the cage. Yeah.
We all know who I'm talking about there.
Hey, more than one place, I'll say, Jeff. More than one place. But Mikey Broderick, you could not ask for more from the man. He is the model of what a pro wrestler should be. An incredible body guy who is always in the right place at the right time with a great hard-hitting move. Luke Watts, despite looking like he has teleported here from the 70s territory system, is a really exciting baby face because exactly what I said. He's got the fake tan, the long flowing blonde hair. He looks like the fake version of Ric Flair from the 70s. And
I was going to say he looks like Will Ferrell playing the Ric Flair character in Eastbound and Down.
Yes. Yeah, that's what he is. But he does a great moonsault, right? That's the gimmick. And we've previously on live streams watched Slam and watched Luke Watts. I think it was Luke Watts versus Robbie Eagles. And I went, wow, this Watts guy can go. And he can. And this match had the classic finish of Watts gets to the top of the cage and instead of climbing down, hits a moonsault on Broderick to get the pin. I've got a tiny criticism. I think he hit the moonsault and then he laid there for a couple of seconds and then he moved into the pin. I think if he had gone straight into the pin, it would have been a much more satisfying end for the crowd. I think there was a moment of
moment of suspense. Well played, Lachlan. No, you can't really.
Not saying a lot.
You can't do that.
Okay, well, I'm
look
going
at the face on it.
I'm going to go ahead and deliver my thoughts on this one as we seem to have lost Lachlan and maybe Todd as well now. Hello, everyone. I'm rolling the boots. No, look, I had fun with this. I thought that the best thing I can say about this, and every time I look at Lachlan, I'm smiling. The best thing I can say about this,
I'm back.
The best thing I can say about this is it certainly didn't go longer than it should have. They found the perfect time to end. They found the perfect move to end on. I think him laying in the ring for a few seconds was a good move because it's more than just the moonsault off the top rope. No, it's a moonsault off the cage. And he kind of hurt himself delivering it. So give him a few seconds to recover before he crawls over and gets the pin on Broderick. It also makes Broderick look stronger. So I don't mind that at all. I thought this was terrific. I thought this was good. And of a side note, when I did bump into Luke, he had a nasty little bump on his head. So one of those bashes into the cage clearly got him. Just a great little match. I thought this was terrific and a really nice way to end a night so it didn't go too long and making yet the main event feel really important.
Yeah, that's the thing. They've built over X amount of time to this match to the point where they had all those story beats ready for a highlight clip for you to see to know what was going into this match. I completely agree with Jeff, where like he had to sell that impact for himself off that moonsault. Like if he'd have just hit that moonsault and popped straight up and then pinned him, then really like if it did that to him, then it couldn't have hurt Mikey that much. Whereas by selling that thing like that took the shit out of that blew all the wind out of my body. It's got to have absolutely killed this guy. And to sell, and not only that, you selling that thing of the crowd wanting him to get to that cover, like fight through, get to that cover, man, before you give him time to recuperate. That sort of deal. So yeah, I completely agree with Jeff.
It's the same as RVD hitting the 5-star frog splash and rolling around for a few seconds holding his guts because it's hurt him. I feel it's the same thing. It's the same principle.
Yeah, I think I was honestly being a little bit picky there. So that's And I was trying to be picky because it was a great match, and there's not a lot more I can say about it. You know,
terrific match, and congratulations to Luke Watts. What a great win! It's 2 wins in 2 nights because Luke wound up triumphant at WrestleBrainia the night before. So congratulations to Luke.
Absolutely. Now, moving on to news. There's a lot of news. We might just pick a couple of things to quickly talk about before we move on.
Before you do that, we'll just make sure people know. Fight TV for MCW, YouTube. Go to the Slam Pro Wrestling League channel, and they have the live stream up there for you to watch right now. So you can go and watch it as soon as we finish prattling on. You can go and watch that show in full because it was a really good show. I mean, I wasn't a massive fan of the women's title match, and I wasn't a massive fan of the tag title match, but the show was solid. So please do go and check it out. 1,700 people can't be wrong.
Absolutely. Now, there's a lot of news going on around the world of wrestling. The first thing we're going to point out is, of course, whenever we see success for an Aussie, Kyle Fletcher becoming the new Ring of Honor TV champion at Final Battle. We got a lot of love for Kyle Fletcher here, as has happened in the past when Davis has become injured. Mark Davis as part of Aussie Open. You get a little bit worried that Kyle Fletcher is going to be left in the lurch, which is what seemed to happen last time. It is really good to see him getting some singles success while Mark Davis is out with injury. So congratulations, Kyle Fletcher, on the Ring of Honor TV title win. Anything to say about that, gentlemen?
Nope. Well done. I mean, I haven't actually watched the show yet, so I can't really comment on the match. But yeah, from all reports, well done to him. It's good. It's good that he got a shot.
AJ Styles returning to WWE on Friday's SmackDown, looking absolutely jacked to hell. What has he put in his body to look like that?
A juiced Styles.
Yeah,
a juiced Styles. Yes,
absolutely juiced Styles.
I'm interested to see what's going on with that because, like,
I liked it.
He made the save and then he went and hit LA Knight straight afterwards. So get me interested to see what they do because this week I think this week's a live one, but then next week might be, or I'm not sure how it works with SmackDown because I know that I don't think Raw is a best of.
Raw is going to be a best of on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, whenever it is. And it's Christmas Day. And I think SmackDown is going to be pre-recorded, like they're doing a double SmackDown this week.
Okay. Well, that makes sense.
I think that's the plan. Because I know that Trips is... I know that Trips is saying that he wants wrestlers to spend times with their families at this time of year. He doesn't want them on the road as much as Vince had them. So, which is kind of nice.
This is also something that Randy Orton has said in an interview, is that under the Triple H regime, apparently people from WWE management are coming up to performers and saying, hey, this person's birthday is coming up in a few weeks. Like, your family member's birthday is coming up. Do you want time off? And that kind of thing. So that's like really excellent to hear that element of wrestler well-being is being looked after by the company. That's really excellent stuff to hear, where in the past, it's just been, you're on the road 300 days and that's that. So really good to hear that stuff. This one is a little bit of a public service announcement for any Aussie listeners who are interested. The Undertaker One Dead Man show that was announced for Perth will be coming around Australia. So I personally don't care what that man has to say. I would actually like him to talk a little bit less since retiring. But if you're interested in hearing Mark Calloway talk about his career as the Dead Man, you can check out the One Dead Man show coming to a few Australian cities around the country. Kenny Omega.
The Perth show has already sold out. So go to the EPW show instead. It's going to be fantastic.
EPW Australian Super Show. Make sure you get your tickets because there are going to be some massive things on that card. I know that Slex will be there, Delta will be there, the Velocities will be there. It's gonna be a bang.
The Parade got announced today.
Yeah,
like I actually bought my tickets to that before buying my tickets to Elimination Chamber and before buying my flights. That was my priority number one. And I feel like that was the right choice because that is shaping up to be a stupid good show. Kenny Omega has been diagnosed with diverticulitis after being hospitalized following his match against Ethan Page on Collision and his promo with Chris Jericho on Dynamite. He's listed as being out indefinitely. Best wishes to him because diverticulitis can really take it out. What do we think happens with the storyline involving Jericho, etc.?
I think
it's who cares? It's Jericho. I'm tired. Just,
he'll find somebody else. He'll find somebody else that's got a bit of heat to him and glom his way onto it. That's what he does.
We've got updated standings for the Continental Classic. Every person in the Continental Classic has one more match to wrestle. So keep in mind that these standings could change. At the moment, Blue League has some close bunching at the top. Daniel Garcia at the bottom on 0 points with 4 losses. But other than that, we've got El Idolo and Danielson on 9, and then Brody King, Claudio Castagnoli, and Eddie Kingston all on 6. Very surprising considering Kingston's held titles are on the line for this one. Would not surprise me to see Kingston get one more victory, clump those 9 points together, and have to have a multi-man match to resolve that. Meanwhile,
the other side is doing a multi-man match, I believe.
Right. The standings I've got here for the Gold League have Jay Lethal and Mark Briscoe down the bottom on 0. Meanwhile, at the top of the card is John Moxley on 12 points, being undefeated in 4 matches. After that, Swerve Strickland and Jay White on 9 points, with Roosh sitting in the middle on 6.
Yeah. Well, I know, I think Swerve won tonight, and so did, I think Jay White beat Moxley. So it's going to be a 3-way in that.
Right, that would put all 3 of them on 12, so it'll be interesting to see if we get like 2 triple threats to determine who comes into the final or what happens there.
I'll tell you what though, if Kingston doesn't go much further or much like to the final, how much of a fucking idiot does he look like?
Oh, he looks like a complete fool. He already looks like a fool because he's near the bottom of the ladder after putting his titles on the line. I think it's hurt him a lot.
What do you think, Jeff?
Honestly, my care factor for this is plummeted. to be really honest, I've just found that AEW is a chore, much in the same way that WWE has been for a lot of years. I find AEW extremely hard work, and I just watch their pay-per-views. There you go. There's the truth.
Speaking of a lack of care factor, new women's tag team champions are Kaden Carter and Katana Chance. So congratulations to them. I think it's time to get into chicken salad and chicken shit. What do you think, boys?
I was just going to say, while you may say, speaking of lack of care, I think it's really, really good that Chance and Carter are given a decent run with the belts. Like, let's see them have a good run, because they're a very good and talented tag team.
They are good. I just think that those belts have been a little bit forgotten. I more meant lack of care from the WWE about those belts. Which,
that I agree.
That's not a new problem, because we'll remember way back that was something that Sasha Banks walked out of the company about all those moons ago. So to see those,
but then again, like they have been pretty much snake bit with injuries. Like like every belt that AEW seems to have. Like every time somebody got those tag titles, like the women's tag titles, one of them got injured. I mean, how many different partners has Chelsea Green had with that one run? Was it 2 different partners?
I think it was 3 from memory.
So there you go. That's like one thing that because I know you're not a massive fan of it, but Charlotte Flair is out for 9 months with an ACL injury.
Tore basically every muscle in her body, didn't she? I think it was ACL, MCL, and meniscus all torn, and a strained neck.
And strained neck on that fall. So
wow.
unfortunate. It was a complete freak accident too.
Look, while I'm certainly no fan of Charlotte's, no one likes to hear this. So,
Yes,
it's
exactly.
a shame. And also importantly, Rey Mysterio has signed a new contract with WWE. That's not the important thing. Dominic Mysterio, the legend, the 18-year veteran, has signed a new contract with WWE. So,
Absolutely.
Dum-dum.
Also acknowledge rumors going around. Now, they are just rumors, and these rumors always go around, but they're especially loud at the moment, is that WWE writers have been asked to prepare something for Mercedes Moné /Sasha Banks. We will see what happens there. We'll see if there's anything that comes up there. Todd versus Lachlan, who would win in a ladder match? Obviously me. We can move on from that comment. Thanks, Hookstagram. It's time to talk about chicken salad and chicken shit.
I guess going up the ladder. What are you talking
I
about?
just want to respond to what you just said about Mercedes. And
I
the
would wait
rumor.
till you got halfway up the ladder and gas out, then just casually climb.
Mercedes has said that she will come back, but she wants Charlotte Flair money. She wants main event money, which Charlotte Flair is on. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, Charlotte got a mad because she just signed a multi-year extension, and apparently she got a massive bump in money too. So, because that was apparently the first one done for under the new TKO regime. So, so I think people were worried that they weren't going to fork out money, but there you go.
Tim Wilson has said, I will have to def that match. I think you mean ref. Sure, Tim, I would.
And the answer, the actual answer, Hookstagram, is that between Todd and I, one of us has a heavyweight championship match in February, and one of us has never worked a match in his life. So that probably indicates who would win.
Yeah. One of us has a heavyweight championship match. The other has a ticket for the front row.
Yeah, that's right. All right, let's start with some downers. Who's got some chicken shit? Jeff, I know you do.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. Firstly, as mentioned earlier, the announcer of Slam was quite distracting, and it was a bit unfortunate to what was otherwise an excellent night. The other thing, and this isn't only at Slam, this is also at MCW, they're doing family shows, and sometimes the audience gets a bit unruly. So a couple of examples where I heard some absolutely foul language, not from kids, but from adults about certain performers, particularly in the Battle Royal at Slam. Oh. And I also saw a young lady who was wearing what could exaggeratedly be called a handkerchief, and decided to pick her fairy floss G-string up as she exited the auditorium. This is not meant in any way against that person. Personally, you wear what you want. I don't care. Do what you want. But remember, this was marketed as a family show and there were kids around. So please be a bit more mindful next time you go to the wrestling about what you say and also about what you wear. If I was wearing a T-shirt with an offensive gesture or something like that, or I dropped a huge swear word in front of people, or I behaved the way I do at WrestleBrainia, which is a sweary type show in general, then yes, criticize me. If we do a family show, criticize me. Equally so, this person should be criticized for their outfit and general behavior. Let's keep family shows to families.
I want to jump on that one as well, Jeff, because during the women's match at Slam, there were some incredibly inappropriate comments coming from behind me. I do want to give a big shout out to security, who did an awesome job responding to that, basically getting those people in line and making sure it didn't happen again. So credit to security. But guys, if you're going to a family-friendly show, behave yourself, please. Todd, do you have a chicken shit? Oh, sorry.
Maybe they didn't know what it was. Because let's face it,
as the wonderful Keanu
said,
new people. He also heard a lot of crazy stuff at Slam as well. So
I'll say, Todd, at an 18, even if it was at an 18+ show, the comments that I heard were, I would be calling them out as chicken shit.
Oh,
okay. No, I'm not defending them. I'm saying maybe they just haven't been to wrestling shows. They didn't know what this was. They didn't. Yeah, I don't know. I can't defend people I don't fucking know anyway. Act right, people.
Todd, have you got some chicken shit?
Yeah. I got two. One is my favorite bloke in the world, Tony Khan. I have to point this out because it just made me lol, because he was at the final battle media scrum where he went on a diatribe about people picking on him on Twitter and all of this sort of stuff. And just there's this statement here, right? He said there is a reason that every single person that stepped into his position has gone out of business. He's the only one left, and thank the fans. He's the only one. He's only been doing it for fucking. This whole statement made it seem like he was standing next to neck, like shoulder to shoulder, with Jim Crockett and bloody Vern Gagne, and like he'd been around for years. Dude, you've been around for 3 fucking years. You just don't like criticism. That's 100% of what it is. Please don't act like you've been there and in the fight for. You got your company a TV time slot because you knew the guy that ran TBS. Please don't stop doing this. I'm sick and tired of this shit. And the other one was, and I'm kind of glad because it's been cancelled now. There was a show on tomorrow night on for Deathmatch Down Under. It's been cancelled because apparently, well, there are reasons, but they haven't been made public, so I'm not going to actually say what they were. But they had, and Jeff knows what I'm talking about here, they had a chance to actually make a stand and be people of their word and what their ethos was from the start, and the new management coming in. And when they were asked about it, they completely just backed the other side, which to me says that's you're done for me. I'm done. I'm not going to give you another chance. I'm not going to do any of this sort of shit anymore. As far as I'm concerned, it's the same circus, just different clowns. All right, smarten your shit up, because eventually people will start again calling you out, and pay your people back. Still, pay them back. Not everyone's been paid back yet. Stop trying to run fucking shows when you haven't paid everyone back. Simple as that. Sorry, Jeff. I know this is your gimmick, and I've stolen it. And I apologize for that.
It's fine. I couldn't agree more. They're despicable people. I'm so tired of Deathmatch Down Under and their incessant line of bullshit. Honestly, that show could have been, as far as I'm concerned, the show was cancelled because no one was interested. And welcome to 2024, where no one will be interested. Just pay people back.
I'll read out. Tim Wilkes from Suplex says, can I give mad props to Renegade and CJ Young on their recent match for the Suplex streaming title? Will be available on YouTube soon, but was a great match. I'm totally unsurprised.
Sorry, Tim, you can't. We don't have enough time for you to do that.
Yeah, not enough time.
not enough time,
on.
Tim, sorry.
But yeah, totally unsurprised to hear that Renegade and CJ Young had a great match. Big fans of Renegade up here in Queensland. CJ Young also a really good performer. So that
I look forward to seeing it, Tim.
Will be worth seeing. I got some chicken shit. It's this storyline where they've had Ridge Holland in kayfabe injure Ilya Dragunov.
Yeah.
And the fact that that WWE is trying to play on the existence of a potentially career-ending injury caused to Big E by Ridge Holland in what seems to have been kind of a freak accident on a suplex botch, right? Big E thankfully seems to be okay. Whether he returns to wrestling or not, we'll see. But the idea that WWE is using that as a storyline by having Ilya Dragunov storyline injured by Ridge, I think is shitty. I think it's shitty.
The only way I will give this a pass is if Big E gave his blessing. That's the only way I'll do it. If Big E is in this somewhere along the line where he's the one that goes to Ridge Holland and says, "Look, man, it happens. I don't hold anything against you. Ilya won't hold anything against you. It's just one of those things that happen." You know what I mean? Because that's what they're saying. This is supposed to be like a redemption story sort of thing. But yeah, I would like to think that at least they've talked to Big E about this and gotten his blessing before going ahead and just doing it.
Even
Sure.
if they have, I think it leaves a bad taste in my mouth for a few reasons.
Oh, 100%.
And one of them is that it has opened up Ridge Holland to being abused by social media idiots for being an unsafe worker. And I think that putting him in that situation where we have to relitigate a botch that he made that seriously hurt someone sucks for him. Right?
Yeah.
So, like,
But
regardless,
then again,
of
he would
anything
have had to agree to it. Surely,
I
they're not just
know.
going to go. This is the storyline we're going with, because he would know what was coming.
Yeah, yeah. And look, Tim Wilkes says that in the Triple H HBK WWE, I would think hopefully Big E would have been approached. I hope so as well. It still leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I'm going to go first with a chicken salad, just because I have one that it is not the most fun. So I'll top it off with something that hopefully is a little more hopeful. A really good podcast that I enjoy is How to Wrestling. It's a gimmick that a few podcasts have had.
I was going to say it wasn't last week's WrestleRadio Australia.
It was not last week's WrestleRadio Australia.
I was going to say, was it last week's WrestleBrainia?
WrestleBrainia was great. I'll give that.
It's not a podcast.
I'll be a bit more
Yeah,
positive about
it's
that.
not
In
a
a second.
podcast, but it's still really fun.
All right, move
Because
away
it'll
from the
be a
mics,
chicken
boys.
salad.
You're popping your plosives, boys. Move away from the mics.
Sorry about that.
Thank you.
I apologize, Lachlan.
Okay, I'm about to be a little bit solemn here, so can we calm it down, please?
Sure.
How to Wrestling is a really great podcast where basically Kevin, who people may know from the Attitude Era podcast, and his wife, Jo. Joe, at the start of the podcast 9 years ago, was new to wrestling, and basically he goes through the career of different wrestlers and runs through what this wrestler means in the context of wrestling, gives matches that are key to their career leading up to the modern day or through their career, and as a result goes through kind of the history of wrestling through the lens of certain wrestlers. A really cool podcast that's really good for people who want to learn more about specific wrestlers. This week, after 9 years of the podcast, they did a 3-hour episode on Chris Benoit. Now, this is obviously a very sensitive topic. And yes, How to Wrestling, James Cray, spelled with the number 2, How to Wrestling. And it would be, I think that a lot of Chris Benoit content is very unpleasant. There's Chris Benoit content that celebrates him as a wrestler after he did horrific things. There's Chris Benoit content that focuses on sensationalizing a murder, which is what a lot of true crime content does that I am absolutely not a fan of because it minimizes the victim's role in things. I think that How to Wrestling, Kevin and Joe did an incredible job of making a podcast that discusses what happened with Chris Benoit, the legacy he leaves on an industry, and the way that we can acknowledge some of the factors that may not have, or may have in part led to the truly horrific thing that happened, while centering the people who were affected by it, and especially while being extremely positive about and remembering the legacy of Nancy Benoit, aka Woman, and her effect on the industry. I think that it's a long podcast. It's about 3 hours. I listen to it at double speed because that's how I do podcasts. But the fact that they were able to take such a sensitive topic and dive into it with an appropriate level of sensitivity to really give a good view on how people have misrepresented it, how people have kind of not acknowledged certain factors, and to give a view of how to compartmentalize this part of wrestling history while still acknowledging the impact that Benoit had on wrestling as a whole, I think was expertly done and is a very good listen, especially if, like me, it's difficult to process feelings about that. I've spoken before about the first wrestling match I can remember watching was a Chris Benoit match. and it's really hard to square that with what we know about the man. So huge shout out to How to Wrestling in their Chris Benoit episode.
I personally, I remember seeing him live at Theberton Theatre just before he started, just after he did his Pegasus Kid run.
Wow.
With Jushin Thunder Liger.
Yeah. And
it's so hard to separate those two from, like, because amazing fucking wrestler, deeply troubled person.
Yes.
And
so
obviously with factors, but yeah.
So I do highly recommend that podcast as kind of a kind of processing experience. While I'm talking about things that are maybe not the most fun, but I think are definitely worth recommending. If anyone hasn't seen the movie Gaia Girls, Gaea Girls, I'm going to highly recommend that one as well. A journey through Joshi training, which is really confronting, but a really incredible documentary. So if you are ready to be confronted with what Joshi training was like under some really significant names, I do recommend Gaia Girls as well. I'll take a little bit of a brighter note coming out of this that we can get to some happier chicken salad. This is
my chicken salad was a double murderer and people being tortured in training.
So here's a show that I haven't gotten the chance to watch yet, but I am on the edge of my seat to. It's the latest Deadlock Pro Wrestling show. They have a subscription service online, I believe, but I have heard rave reviews about 2 of the matches on this show. One of them was Anthony Hendry and JD Drake versus Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin, which immediately sounds like a banger. And I've heard very good things, as well as, if you're into the Joshi stuff, Takase versus Emi Sakura, which should be an absolute banger. So Deadlock Pro's most recent show is one that I am going to go out of my way to watch. And one of the most delightful experiences I've had to do with professional wrestling came just over a week ago, seeing WrestleBrainia live. I had an absolute ball. It was such a fun show. That's me sucking up, baby. I want to be on the list. I want to get in for free. That's what this is all about. No, seriously, I had an absolute joy of a time. I brought a friend and both of our partners, and my friend's partner, not a wrestling fan at all, and even she had a blast, had a great time coming to this show. So can highly recommend WrestleBrainia, an easy chicken salad for WrestleBrainia.
Thank you.
Jeff, do you have anything that you want to give a chicken salad to?
I have two. Firstly, mine is also a reflection on last weekend, specifically how wonderful it was to have Keanu coming up and saying hi and thanking me for what we do here and what, you know, the show and things like that. And also Beck. Beck walks up.
The best.
Beck walks up, gives me a hug and goes, "The Queen's here." Just so sweet and so funny. We love you, Beck. Please keep being you. You're amazing and incredible. And
I got just about crash tackled by Beck when I came to give her a hug.
noticed.
Big shout out to Beck, one of the best.
The other thing is a realization that came to me as I was watching SmackDown. I think I watched it on Sunday morning before I hit the road. And that was that what they're doing with Bayley right now is fascinating. It's probably the most interesting stuff they've done since Sami Zayn. I do think there's a face turn coming, but who knows when it is. And it's really, really interesting to watch. However, I don't think Bayley's going back to being the hugger. I think that ship has now sailed. No. I think she'll be a face turn in her current gimmick, which will still give Michael Cole a lot of shit and still be really, really funny. So I'm so looking forward to that. Like, massive kudos to the WWE.
I think you're going to see her face turn tie in with Sasha Banks coming back.
You're probably right.
Which is going to be cool if it happens.
Absolutely. Yeah. Alex Firehart in the chat saying chicken salad for me would be the fact that Abaddon has been getting a lot more TV time in AEW. Was getting super annoyed that it felt they were only being used on TV around the spooky season. Letting Abaddon at least come back for a story with Julia Hart before going off TV again for a while has been a nice change. Todd,
yeah, but how fucking dumb have they done with the whole turn of Sky Blue?
We're in the chicken salad section, Todd. Let's be nice.
But Alex brought it up, not me. It was adjacent.
Okay.
They turned her, then she didn't turn, and then all of a sudden, oh look, I've turned. It's just as soon as I saw that one, well, that's fucking dumb, and moved
Yay,
on. Anyway,
AEW.
anyway, I've got a couple. I've got a couple of chicken salads. First, Raw this week, Gunther and Miz. Holy shit! And that's a sentence I never thought I would write on Twitter in my life. But they had an absolute fucking banger on Monday night. If you don't watch Raw, please go out of your way to watch that match because it was an absolute cracker. I don't know if either of you have seen it or not, boys.
Not yet. I've got it's on the list just below the podcast from last week with Edward Dusk.
I'm telling you right now,
Mine is above the
go and watch
podcast
that
last
match
week with
because you will
Edward
like
Dusk.
that match. You're just mad because you weren't in the fucking episode, Lachlan, for a start.
Correct. I love Dusky. I want to talk to him.
So, my other one, of course, was from Endgame, and that was Aisha and why am I blanking? Thank you. That match was I loved it. I loved just the aggressiveness of it, the aggressiveness fit. And too many times nowadays you see in a match where they're building something to it, but there's no real feeling in the match. Like the bell rings and then the match just starts the way a match would start. You know what I mean? This one, they had real aggression. They had real like wanting to get at each other, and I love that. I like hats off to them. Great match. My third and my final one is we had 1,700 people come to see an Australian wrestling show.
Yes, we sure did.
Isn't that wonderful?
That's
We had
so good.
My hat is off to everyone involved with Slam Pro Wrestling League for the way that they promoted their show, the way that they got the word out for their show, the way that they everything they did with the promotion and the execution of that show is something that every promotion around the country need to either get in the inbox of those guys and go, hey, how did you do this? Or just get out of the business. Honestly, because that is how you promote a show. That is how you get butts on seats, is what those guys did. And then the 1,700 people went into that place and they didn't take their money and run. They gave them a great show that hopefully, say they were getting, like, let's say being generous, they were getting, say, 500 people to a show. If they could get 600 people to a show now from that, even though I know it's a big gap between 600 people and 1,700 people, still, if you can get 100 extra people coming back to your show, that is a win. That is a win and a half.
And to add in what Tim Wilkes is saying, 1,700 in the Canberra market, which isn't easy. Alex Fireheart said similarly, not to mention a number that high in Canberra, not a place you'd expect to get that good in attendance. Yeah, it'd be one thing to get 1,700 in Sydney or Melbourne. In Canberra, they managed 1,700.
Yeah, and I'll be honest too, the wrestling scene in Canberra before Slam come along isn't exactly the best, or hasn't exactly been the best quality in wrestling. And for have those guys to come along and put across the product that they put across to get 1,700 people into that place, I'm really, really interested to see what their Rumble draws, just as a backup to the show afterwards. But it reminds me of there was a Facebook post Brutal Bob Evans put up today, the other day, and I shared it because it absolutely encompassed exactly like my feelings and my frustrations over the journey. Anyway, I'm gonna read it out for you just because you mightn't have seen it. And, he wrote, "Time to hurt some feelings. 95% of the people in your town don't know local wrestling exists. They're not turned off or chased away. They don't even know it's a thing. If you want to sell out, if you want to be successful, solve that problem. Raise awareness and get them there. They will then serve them extremely well." This is exactly what Slam did. With shorter shows, good food, good matches, you said the wedges were great, and clean bathrooms. I've done surveys. Those are by far the top 4 things casual fans want. Oh, and 99.9% of paying customers don't want blood anymore. It scares the kids and the mums, and those 2 demographics are what drive your sales.
Yep.
I don't think I've seen a better encompassed statement as to that. If you are a local promotion, if you work for a local promotion, get the word out locally. I don't know if it's letterbox drops. I don't care if it's go to your local shops and see if you can put up posters. It's getting the word out in any way, shape, or form, because Lachlan, Jeff, you go to a live show and it's different to everything else you've seen. Even watching it on TV, it's a completely different animal.
There is nothing like live wrestling. Nothing.
No, and if you already persuaded to like wrestling, you're going to love it after you go to a live show. If you just were on the fence about wrestling, you're going to go, I'm going to go and give it another go. If you go to a good quality show, that is.
And damn it, there's a lot of wrestlers in Australia who we know will not be here in 5 years. So go and see them now. There's a pause now. Australian professional wrestling is pretty much wrapped up for the year, which is completely understandable. And most places aren't coming back till February. So make sure you get your hands on a ticket to go and see shows late January or early February. Renegade's back on the 25th in Melbourne. MCW's back on the 9th and 10th. 9th and 10th, have I got that right? 10th and 11th, around that time in Feb. Go and see these shows. Go up to White Bay. Go to PWL and watch Todd get his ass kicked. I mean, go and do these things. Because if you don't, when Todd's being a great manager in the WWE, you're going to go, well, I could have seen.
Sorry. No, January 6th is my first show back, and it's a UPW. I'll be seconding Tim Hayden against Jesse Love. So if you're on
January 6th, Tim Wilkes is back as Suplex CEO. So there's a lot to see, and go and see it before it all dries up.
Speaking of being back, Wrestle Radio Australia will have Making Chicken Salad back next Thursday night for our year in review show. If you have something that you want to let us know that you loved this year, if you want to ask us a question about what we thought of something this year, this is your chance to do it. It is going to be a blowout show next Thursday. As always, 7:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Time, 8:30 p.m. Australian Daylight Savings Time. That is on the 28th of December, and we're going to have some year-end awards to give out. So if you want to make sure that you don't miss that episode, make sure you are following Wrestle Radio Australia on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you subscribe to Wrestle Radio Australia. If you want to join in the conversation, it'll be at twitch.tv/Wrestle Radio Australia. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please give us a review. 5 stars really helps us get into more ears. Speaking of getting into ears, social media helps us spread the word. So follow us at Wrestle Radio AU on Twitter and Instagram, or on Facebook at Wrestle Radio Australia, where we also stream live. So, for example, Tim Wilkes is watching us live from Facebook at the moment. If you want to follow us individually, Todd is at Beast Eastman. I am at Lachlan Albert. Jeff is at Jeff_Seti. Of course, Jeff's other project, WrestleBrainia, is at Wrestle_Brainia. And he spoke about how that's going to be in Perth, alongside the WWE. Give us the details of that again, Jeff.
Yeah, that is on the 24th of Feb at 2:30 in the afternoon at Lennox Lounge. I'm sorry. Tickets are available now. They're already moving. They are on OzTix. It is going to be a great show. Some of the talent that we have lined up, both comedically and in terms of wrestling, are world class and very, very fucking funny. We've got some WrestleBrainia veterans, and we've got some people doing it for the first time. I personally cannot wait.
While you've got your wallet out to buy that WrestleBrainia ticket, you can also head on over to Redbubble, search for Wrestle Radio Australia. There you can find any of our merchandise, with the proceeds not going to us, but going to Beyond Blue and Gotcha for Life, 2 charities that support men's mental health here in Australia. Speaking of donating there, you can donate at tinyurl.com/WRA10, which is where we are raising some money to send to, I believe, Gotcha for Life is the charity that money is going to. We're going to leave that up a little bit longer so that if you want your money to go to a good cause, you can do it there. And of course, if you want the shirt, tinyurl.com/WRA10 shirt will take you directly to our 10-year strong celebration shirt. Before we go, mention the two shows we've reviewed tonight one more time. MCW Endgame, if you have a Fight Plus subscription, is available on Fight, and Slam Pro Wrestling's Rage in the Cage is available on YouTube for free. Todd, is there anything else we need to mention before we go?
Yes, keep your eyes on our Instagram, because we'll probably put up polls for some of the votes for the awards show for next week.
That's at WrestleRadio AU on Instagram.
Yeah, because I think we'll do a fan vote, then we'll also do our consensus vote between the three of us. So we'll
absolutely. Jeff, anything else to plug?
Just to mention the Oceania Pro Wrestling crew are working really hard on StarCast. I can tell you now they've got some fantastic guests lined up. Information and tickets will be available early in the new year. So that is definitely going to go ahead in Ballarat, the regional town near Melbourne, which will be really exciting. And there's some things coming down the pike, as they would say. So we'll see how.
How exciting. Well, on behalf of the funny man there, Jeff Setti, and the daddy of Wrestle Radio Australia, Todd Eastman, I've been Lachlan Albert. Till next time, have a good one.
Bye, Daddy.
COVID.
Here I was, blaming AEW for feeding you chicken shit, knowing you mindless millennials would be eating it up as if it were chicken salad, when it's really been your fault all along.
Make chicken salad